Yes, we'll just jump right in. So everybody, I just wanted to take a moment and introduce myself. I'm Jamie from the Know team. And this is our second in the Know webinar. And we just really hope with these webinars, we can help e-commerce brands learn best practices and explore new strategies and concepts. So there is always a couple things I like to mention before we get started in today's webinar. First off, like I said, I always send out a follow-up email so you can circle back to this webinar. I'll include the replay there too for you guys. Also, feel free to use the Q&A box if you have any questions that you want to send in to us. We can ask those after the presentation. But if you do have any Know specific account questions, or if you're looking to sign up for a Know account, you can always reach out to us at hello@knowcommerce.com. We're always happy to help you guys out. So now with that, I would like to introduce our speaker. Today we have Yasmin Nozari, and Yasmin is the co-founder and COO at Peel. She has her slides up here so you guys can see that. If you aren't already familiar with Peel, they are an automated analytics platform for e-commerce businesses. And Yasmin's going to chat about many of the data insights that are crucial for e-commerce brands to grow and the metrics that companies can't live without. So we are so glad she's here today with us and that you're here tuning in too. So Yasmin, I'm going to go ahead and let you jump in now.
Hi everybody. So I'm Yasmin. So I'm going to talk about a few things, but I'd love to get questions or anything that you're curious about. So when we built Peel, the point that we have lots of different reasons, but we want brands to be able to do more with their data. So we bring analysis and action together so you can help retain your best type of customers and grow your customers. And that's our whole premise: peel your data, like peeling an onion, see all the different layers. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about all the good stuff that you can get in your data sets, and then some analysis. We have tons of different analyses that are just available to you, but to help not get overwhelmed, I'm just going to go through a few of them that most people are attracted to when they're looking for as a baseline. So the first point, there's 2 points sort of when we think about it. It's collecting data, which is all the dimensions and segments and ins and outs of it. And I'll explain what that means. And then the measurement aspect. So when we think about data, it sort of brings me back to middle school or high school science class, probably middle school, where we learned what an experiment was. And as cheesy as this sounds, this is sort of true, or we think about it like this. It's you have a hypothesis, you're thinking about something about your customer set, or the products you're offering, or an experiment that you're thinking about, or a discount code, like a strategy, oh, let's try this. That's a hypothesis because you think it will do X, Y, and Z. But you have to measure it, and you can't just go off of, you can, but you shouldn't just go off of gut or different optics of somebody said they saw. That's one data point. You should measure these hypotheses. And then you think about the results, and you look into the results, and you think more about them. And then you run an experiment. So you see what's going on with these customers, or with this strategy that you're doing. And then you measure it again. So it's just this constant cycle of, it's essentially trying things, but you're constantly measuring it based off of different ideas, aka hypotheses that you have. And so if we think about analysis that way, that's a framework, as loosey-goosey as that sounds, to help you sort of approach the projects. So your data sets are really, really rich. And what Peel does is we compute all of the different metrics, something as basic as number of orders, or number of orders from new customers, or lifetime value, or repurchase behaviors, by all the dimensions that can be found in the data set. Whether you're e-commerce or not, your data contains lots of interesting tidbits. Some might call it segments. I sometimes call it dimensions. I switch back and forth. But it's all of these different things about your customers. And these dimensions contain lots of valuable information for you to come up with experiments and hypotheses, and to just learn about what makes your best type of customer, what's working, what's driving value, and what's not, so you can take opportunity of it. And one of those dimensions are survey questions. So I'll talk about that too with no. So at least in the Shopify e-commerce tech stack, these are a bunch of popular dimensions that are automatically computed in Peel, but are also like, if you were just going to Shopify, you would be able to get information about your customers and your orders based off of a lot of these different categories. So order tags, product tags, customer tags. These are things that you as the brand put onto your orders, products, or customers. So if a customer came from a catalog, you might have a rule where you actually, you probably might manually tag that customer, they like catalog. You might give them any type of identifier. You could set up rules and flows to be able to do this automatically, but it's a way for you to then identify different dimensions in the data sets. Your products, your SKUs, your variants, the product options, like the colors or sizes, types, like however your product is, like you can go into the different variables to identify them in different groups. And so I'm not going to go through all of these, but all of these different dimensions, depending on what you're selling, are very, very rich. And you could do analysis on any of them. So like, what is the average order value of people who are tagged in a specific way? These could be loyalty customers, so they're different tiers. Some apps in the ecosystem automatically tag the data back to Shopify. So this is analysis you could immediately get. Or if you do like a, sorry, I'm blanking on it, like a shipping test, shipping like, oh my God, I can't speak. Charging for shipping or not shipping, you could tag people in different A/B tests and then identify the data. People that bought from, what's the average order value of people who bought from New York, Ohio, or California, or Washington? Like there could be different customer behaviors that you are not aware of based upon different random things that could be very insightful. What is the, what's the repurchase rate of people who came in on a specific discount code? I could be an influencer, Yasmin 15, and my discount, like I might attract really valuable, high valuable customers that continue to stay a long time. And you could identify me based upon the discount code that I give out to your customers. So all of these different dimensions can tell different stories about your customers. And how you utilize them is sort of up to you or what you collect, but then you can get a lot of knowledge out of it. Maybe you also are a brand that uses different payment gateways because of your price point, like the Affirms or the buy now, pay laters of the world, because of your price point, and you get a different type of customer who might use that versus a different payment gateway. Maybe there's insight into there and you could identify different subsets of customers. So all of these dimensions can tell you different stories. And I could talk lots. I have lots of different examples about them. But then the survey questions are also really rich. So when we had first started our integration with No, it's like the more you ask, the more you know. So a lot of these are just sort of automated, come in out of the box based off of the data that's coming in from the orders. But you have the flexibility with the survey questions and No's platform to ask, like, get any information you want from these customers. And we have a direct integration with No, where any question that you ask comes in as a dimension that we can analyze any report on. So average order value based off of people's affinity towards the brand or any type of these things. And so this allows you to collect the data that you want to take action on. It could be as classic as the attribution of how did you hear about us, to understand the attribution sources, or it could be about things about the customer. What's their household size? How do they identify themselves? And I know the No team, and I'll show you, has a huge bank of really amazing questions to help you get started, so it's not as daunting. It could be like, what statement do you most identify with the brand, sort of on a brand campaign level? If you can get not just the count of survey responses based off of that, but understanding the value of your customers who answered those things in a specific way and adding the analysis layer on top, the data can be extremely rich that you can then have different hypotheses and run different experiments on, and allow you to just do things and understand your customers more. So this is, I know this is a really ugly slide and like too much text and like whatever, but and you don't need to read it, but these are just like a sampling of questions that are being asked on the No platform to help. And it's obviously specific to different things that people ask depending on what they're curious about and getting at. But there's lots of really, really cool questions. Like, did you buy another brand before deciding to buy our brand? Or what encouraged you to purchase today? Or what are the age ranges of your kids? And knowing that information, you just can do so much with it. And then you could sort of match it up with analysis that can help tell a deeper story. And a big connection to that, and this is a view that I'm not going to go over it either. This is more of just like my own notes for this, is like, if you ask household size, for instance, and it's, you know, an individual person versus a couple versus like a family of 5, their time between orders and the expectation of when they should order again is really going to vary depending on the product, if it's a consumer product, for instance, based off of how many people are using it. So having that information and analyzing the time between purchases, and when do people come back and what do they buy based off of the responses to that question, and the spread can help you time out better emails and build out deeper segments of customers that you can add more personal touch to. And so these are mainly examples of how you can use the dimensions in the data set, the surveys, location data, SKUs, products, to build richer customer experiences and identify your best type of customers and take opportunity on other types of customers. And so this is some example of some of the analysis that like you can get from these dimensions. So you can get just tracking different accounts, and then of course, like looking at return, what's the repurchase behavior, depending on the product, of course, of people who identify as a woman or a man. Does that matter? All these different things depending on the flavor of the question that you ask. So that's that. So what we've seen people do is that they do things with this analysis. So if they know what channel, you know, the people are coming from, obviously they can make more informed decisions to invest in those channels. They could assign archetypes and personas based off of what people are saying. So like, what's the LTV of people who answered a specific survey question identified this way versus not? Like, they just get to know more about their customers, and that's in their full control. And that's what's so cool about zero-party data. And this was the example that I was speaking to before, like household size and days between orders, because it's really neat. So essentially is measure your customer. That is because there's so much data just waiting for you to like look at it and read it. And I want to like pause to see if there's any questions. I'll do that. What did you find are 2 of the most interesting analysis to run, and what do they reveal about customer behavior? Do I have to click answer live, or I'm okay?
No, you can just answer.
Okay. Most interesting analysis. Let me go back to the slide. So this is like a view that we had made a long time ago when we first built our integration with Node to sort of match up sample questions, but obviously you can ask anything you want to different types of analyses. You know, I always think the go-to ones of just like looking at the LTV, like maybe even going basic, like average order value by what people respond to. And just starting off small and then going to the deeper analyses like LTV and then repurchase rate. So do people come back and buy again? Like, and that obviously helps identify what their LTV is, because LTV is made up of high average order values or high or a combination of high repeat purchase rates. So what are some of these? I think I mentioned a few of them, but like just knowing more about these people and how it impacts their AOV, like if they always found your product in a specific store, and knowing that component, you can really utilize that into different marketing comms and then matching it with some of the different analyses. All right, so let's go back to this. So this is about measuring your customer, and I'm going to jump into some analyses about this. So there's, as you know, and as I've been espousing, there's so much data to look at to help you answer questions about your customers. What do they buy? How often do they come back? When they come back, what are they buying in their first purchase? And then what do they buy in their repeat purchases? And like, what do those patterns look like? If people, so 100% of people buy a first time because they wouldn't be your customers if not, but like how many people come back and buy a second order, how many people come back and buy a third order, and then looking at it also, if you want to go even deeper than that, by specific campaigns or products in their first order. So like, does a specific product in their first order lead to a customer who returns for 3 or more orders, or do they just drop off after 1? What does that look like? And so by looking at all of these dimensions across these analyses, you could really answer these questions, and you can get a better profile of your customer. So then you could run more experiments on them. And so these questions are sort of endless, but I guess if we were to answer those, like these are a bunch of analysis you can go through to just get a quick initial profile. And so I'm going to go over a few retention analyses that I always find to be very valuable and insightful. And so the first one, like a go-to. So to preface it, Peel has like, I know at least 160. It's probably more than that because we've like released 4 more metrics this past week, but like tons of different analyses that help break down that story that I told above in different ways, because people sort of all look at the same, but they also have a different take to it depending on the product that they're selling. And so, but to not be overwhelming, I'm going to go over just a few. So go-to is repurchase rate, which tells you how many of your customers come back and buy at least 2 or 3 times. And so like in this screenshot, actually there's more metrics in this, but in this like illustration I have, all of these metrics tell the retention story, but they all tell a different view of it. So this one is repurchase rate, and it's a cumulative view. So you can get a summary view of, what did I say? Like within 6 months, 17% of the customers I have acquired have at least come back and purchased once. Or it could be like 30% of my customers have come back within a year. You can easily just see, okay, that's my repurchase rate. And then you can go into granularity between order 2 and order 3, order 3 and order 4, and understand like how big is sort of the funnel with this. So that's one metric. Then another metric that tells another slice of this retention story is like, how many customers come back every single month? And is it like 2% of my customers come back every single month? Maybe it's just 10 people that are like super obsessed with us and they buy continually. What does that look like? And just knowing those patterns on an individual customer level could be really interesting. And knowing if there's like a cluster of heavy repurchasers in like the first 4 months, but then it tails off and people start losing interest. Well, if I analyze my post-purchase outreach at the different timeframes, maybe there's experiments and tweakings I can do there to move those numbers up higher. And so by seeing sort of the patterns of where people are coming back and how often they come back, really can help you sort of tweak things and experiment. And another really cool thing with this metric is you tend to see trends with seasonality. So like for Black Friday, Cyber Monday, you can look at last year and you essentially see a diagonal line, because like this would be, well, I should have made my illustration show that, but it would show you like everybody from previous cohorts that you had acquired at other times of the year come back and buy in November. And maybe that could be because they remembered your brand, maybe because of some deliberate marketing efforts that you did to remind them about your brand. But it's really cool to see the trends in behavior and how far it goes back. And again, there's more stuff that you can do there if you see that there's opportunity with seeing where the customer repurchase patterns are showing. And then this one is, okay, so we get that people come back, and we get that we can look at when people come back based off of different dimensions. So if they had a specific product in their first order, or they came out on discount code, or everyone's from Hawaii in their first order has a higher repurchase rate than people from New York. But then it's like, well, what are they buying? What's happening in those repeat orders? And so this is an example of one of these analyses, because there's so many different ways to look at the story. But this is for my face skincare company, that you can see, okay, maybe this product is the most popular by all time. And that's cool because that's like our hero product. But do people buy that when they come back on order number 2 and order number 3? Is that still the most popular product? Or is it another product that is like the leader for the third order? And we have this analysis which helps answer, which tells you that. So you can quickly toggle here to see like, well, what product leads for the third orders? And by knowing those patterns, again, you can capitalize on it and do things with it. And then this metric, another one, I think this is the last one that I'm going through, is how many customers make, like this is the drop-off rate, and I sort of mentioned this, like 100% of people make the first order, but how many people make the second order, the third order, and the fourth order? And let's say they had this sunscreen in their first order. How many people come back and buy? Like, what's the drop-off rate? And then I would say that this is the opportunity. So we have 78.4% of people didn't come back and buy a second order who had this product in their first order. So what are we going to do about it? And so now you have a baseline. Okay, this is the project we have to start. Let's start trying different experiments to move this number up and get this number to be less than that. So like this, the drop off is now 50% or 40% because we've retained more people. And so understanding these different patterns, you can do things with it. I'm going to pause here because I talked a lot and go through any questions.
I'm not seeing any questions right now, but if people want to pop those in the Q&A box, we can answer them, or if you want to ask your question live, I'm happy to unmute you too. So get those questions in.
And I'll just talk to this for a second. So this is now combining the whole story of dimensions and measurement. So these are some questions that we hear a lot from people in like initial calls, or like curious to learn about their data set. And so what does my retention look like for non-subscribers? So it's easier to identify your retention for subscriptions because it's a subscription. They're going to come back because they're part of it. But what does it look like for my non-subscribers? And like what, and then looking at non-subscribers, what's the behavior of non-subscribers to become subscribers? How many days does it take to reorder? What did they subscribe to? Then what did they subscribe to? Like thinking about all those different customer paths is all a part of the whole dimensions and measurement story. And then other things, like if they bought a kit or a specific SKU, they might want to know, when do these people come back and buy again? How many orders do they make of people who had that product in their first order? And what do they buy? So that was the example that I was showing you before. And it also could be like, if they answered this question, if they asked this question and they bought this SKU, so they had a no question, and then they bought this SKU, who is that? Who are those people? Number one, what does it look like? What does their whole story look like? What's the matchup of that? And now getting understanding of what's the AOV for this group, the LTV for this group, the repurchase behaviors for these groups of people, and let's do something about it. So we also have this actions product in our tool called Audiences, where you can then like actually figure out who they are, get a list, and push them to your marketing platforms to take action. So it's just that whole measurement dimensions thing, but it's really using all the cool stuff that you're collecting or thinking to collect about people and capitalizing on it. And that's sort of the summary of what I'm here to talk about. So anything else? I spelled measurement wrong, I just realized, but anything else I could talk about or answer?
We don't have any other questions, but Yasmin, will you let everybody know? Obviously they can reach out. I'm going to get my face on here again. They can reach out to Peel, how they can find you, if anything does come up. Will you just let everybody know?
Sure.
Here it is.
Here it is. I also forgot, I mistyped this late at night, but you could email me at yasmin@peelinsights.com. This is our URL, peelinsights.com. You can just chat in on that little chat button and you'll reach me or somebody else on our team. We're extremely accessible. And we want to help people understand this and like utilize their data. So like, just ask us a random question about, this is my hypothesis. How do I find that? And, we'll go back and forth of like, well, how do you collect it, or or maybe it's an obvious thing that's collected. But part of the software that we have built that automates the analysis is showing how the dimensions come in and how they can be utilized. And our team is very available to help you get a bigger picture of your customer base.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. It was wonderful having you. And before everybody jumps off, I did want to remind you that our next webinar will be September 8th at 10 a.m. Pacific time, 1 p.m. Eastern time with Gina Pirelli from Retextion, and all about optimizing your subscription strategies. So be sure to join us then. And I will reach out with the follow-up email tomorrow. And thank you so much again, Yasmin. It was great having you.
Thank you. Thanks,
Bye,
everybody.
everybody. Have a great day.
Bye.